I want to go down the road of the independency. And we've heard the term independent science. We've heard that spoken here several times today. According to news reports, including a recent New York Times article, the EPA has a pretty cozy relationship with third-party environmental groups such as the Sierra Club and the NRDC, who are attempting to influence agency policy. Given these stories, and I'm sure you've seen some of them, is it EPA policy, Director McCarthy, to request that these third-party groups write reports to support the agency's position?
I don't know of any agency policy.
Okay, well, great. Let's have slide number 1 come up. According to this email obtained by the committee, then EPA Policy Director Michael Goo writes to the NRDC that, and I quote, maybe a report or two from the NRDC showing that no new coal plants are being built might be helpful in order to provide cover for a draft EPA rule on new fossil power plants. Are you surprised that the EPA Policy Director, I mean, this is a pretty high position, requested that the NRDC draft a report related to an EPA rule? You ever seen that before?
No, I haven't seen that.
Okay, so does it surprise you that the policy director would ask an outside group to do something like that?
Well, I assume he's had communication.
Well, would you take that and get back to us about how that conflicts with if it's not your policy, if it's not the EPA's policy to do that?
Well, you asked
did
me
he violate your
policy
policy
that told people to do that?
Yeah, right. Would you say, based on this, that the EPA does indeed have a cozy relationship with these outside groups if the agency is asking them to write reports providing cover for an EPA draft rule?
Well, all I know is that our rulemaking process is transparent, it's robust.
Well, no, it's not transparent because you're not getting comments from outside groups other than like the NRDC. So do you think it's appropriate that the NRDC is providing cover in their reports for proposed rules?
I think it's appropriate that EPA continue to do rulemaking the way it does.
Well, I understand that your job is to do rulemaking. The question is how transparent and how independent is it really? Is this the only time you are aware that an EPA official has ever requested a third-party group write a report regarding an EPA rule? Have you ever had this happen before?
I can't.
Have you ever requested a report from a third-party group asking for a report while at the EPA? Let's have slide number 2 come up, please. Administrator McCarthy, it appears that EPA Policy Director Michael Goo maintained a very close relationship with third-party groups, even inviting employees from the League of Conservation Voters and NRDC to his house for an annual party known as the Goofest. According to the invitation, the party offers shots of liquor off of an ice luge and copious amounts of food and alcohol. Included in the invitation is an apparent fake quote from President Obama stating, "Even better than killing bin Laden, I'm jealous I don't have an Obama fest." Are you familiar with Goofest?
I have never been to a Goofest.
But are you familiar with it? Are you familiar with it?
I am aware that he has
would you
a party
agree that inviting these third-party groups from the EPA Policy Director, the League of Conservation Voters and NRDC, would you agree that that shows a close, cozy relationship with these folks? And do you think it's appropriate for someone that's responsible for directing EPA's policy to host a party that includes attendees attempting to influence the agency's parties?
I would agree that Michael Goo knows a lot of people. And
no, do you agree that it's appropriate?
I have no reason to believe that this was about influencing rulemaking.
Really?
Nor is there any
let's go to slide number 3. Let's go to slide number 3. Well, Mr. Chairman, I am so sad that we're out of time because I had a lot more that I wanted to cover, but let's when we ended with the last round, you assured me that you had never attended a Goofest. Are you familiar with the Goofest?
I'll be very honest with you. I got the very last invitation. The one that you just showed, I think, was the only one I ever received,
okay, great.
And I did not respond.
Would you agree, though, that the EPA director of policy. I mean, this is the person that directs the development of policy. Having a personal, private relationship, a social relationship at a thing called Goofest shows that the EPA, critical members of the EPA, has a close relationship with these outside third-party organizations, right?
Sir, I don't think.
Is there any
that-
denying
I,
that?
I do not think that people are precluded from having friends in every walk of
Well,
life.
I don't think so either,
I hang out with
but
some
these are people
utility
that are influencing policy. We've already established, Ms. Administrator, that you've asked this group to do policy papers for the EPA, and now you've got the EPA policy director in social settings with these folks. Let's go on. Let's go for slide 3.
But there are ethics policies.
Let's go for
that
slide
guide
3.
these.
In another email, Madam Administrator, from Tiernan Sittenfeld, currently the Senior Vice President for Government Affairs at League of Conservation Voters. I'm going to show you some more evidence that demonstrates this, this inappropriate relationship. Ms. Sittenfeld thanked Mr. Goo for inviting her to Goofest, writing, "As always, I had a great time." According to the White House visitor logs, Ms. Sittenfeld has visited the White House on 71 different occasions. Administrator McCarthy, how many times have you been to the White House?
A lot.
A lot. More than 71 times?
I don't know. I doubt
You don't know. Okay.
I doubt
well,
it.
She's been 71 times. Are you surprised?
Maybe she's older than I am.
Well, could be. I don't know. That'd be good for both of us, I think. Are you surprised that Ms. Sittenfeld has visited the White House some 71 times?
I don't even know the woman.
Well, okay. Well, but you know the position that she holds, because I just told you that. She is the Vice President for Government Affairs at the League of Conservation Voters. Would you say that environmental groups have a close relationship with the White House? And if the Senior Vice President for Government Affairs at the League of Conservation Voters has visited there 100 times, close to 100 times, or 71 times?
I really do not know. That is a very big organization.
Okay, all right.
I have no
Well, let's
idea
go
how
to
many times
slide
we
number
go there.
4. According to news reports and emails obtained by the committee, Mr. Goo, back to the Director of Policy, apparently attempted to skirt transparency. You talked about how transparent your rulemaking process is. Tried to skirt transparency and his ties to environmental groups by arranging meetings with the NRDC at the Starbucks in the JW Marriott Hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue, close to the EPA, in an effort to prevent participants of the meetings from signing in at the EPA building and creating public records. Is it appropriate, in your opinion, for an EPA employee, particularly the Director of Policy, to schedule meetings with outside groups attempting to influence the agency's policy decisions at a Starbucks instead of inside of the EPA?
Sir, I do not know anything about what was being attempted.
Okay. All right. Somewhere along the line, Madam Administrator, the buck stops here, you know?
Yeah.
Why do you think Mr. Goo, the EPA's policy director, set up such a meeting at Starbucks instead of the agency? Any idea?
I would not want to guess.
Well, I think the American people, Madam Administrator, want to know what it says about the EPA's relationship with outside groups if agency officials set up private meetings at coffee shops instead of at their office. I think the American people are very concerned about the cozy relationship between the EPA and these outside advocacy groups. And I want to say one more thing while I've got just another minute or so. I've heard repeated this morning, and you've even echoed it, around the world have made much more progress in reducing carbon emissions and becoming greener with investments in renewables. I just came from a visit to Europe, and I would encourage you to go talk to some of our European friends. You might be shocked, Madam Administrator, to find out that some of our European friends are actually increasing their mix of coal in their energy profiles. And when we ask them why they're doing that, because, you know, they've got a big carbon emission reduction to do by 2030 as well. I asked the president of the energy union, I said, how are you going to accomplish this? And and why are you going to a higher mix of coal? He said, our ratepayers, our businesses, and our residential customers have reached the tipping point. They're no longer willing to pay these exorbitantly high prices in energy costs. It's making us non-competitive in the world's economy. Madam Administrator, that's what your agency is doing to our country by not considering the economic implications of the rules that you make. The Supreme Court has just ruled that it's unreasonable for the EPA to take that position. So I would remind you of that. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.